Let's say hello and good morning to Sandip Sabharwal as well. And Sandip, the business news, which kept everyone first guessing, and now everyone is assuming, is the change of guard at Kotak Mahindra Bank. No internal candidate, an external candidate. He brings a wealth of experience, but something which time will have to say whether he's the right candidate or not.
I agree absolutely because firstly, there were a large number of experienced candidates, including the interim CEO. So I'm not sure why RBI would, whether it was at the insistence of RBI or the board thought it proper to get an external candidate. That we'll never know. The second part is that the culture of Kotak, I believe, is something which is very different from an MNC, and Mr. Vaswani is largely an MNC banker. So how that culture gets translated into Kotak will be something to watch. So I would think that although a period of uncertainty goes away, another period of uncertainty possibly lies ahead because we've seen that external candidates which come in with a very different background. We've seen that with Infosys, we've seen that with Wipro, etc. I think in Infosys when Vivek Murthy came in, somehow the adaptation, etc., or the culture they have been used to, or what the is there in another large organization might be totally different. On valuations, Kotak has obviously corrected from the lofty valuation, but it's still at a premium to both ICICI Bank and HDFC Bank, and to that extent, the valuation comfort is also not there.
So if the stock falls today and it's already been an underperforming stock, valuations are way below the historical average, a 10-15% decline, could this be a contra buy?
Yeah, 10-15% decline certainly, because on a 10-15% decline, the valuations will reach or go below ICICI and HDFC Bank valuation. And Kotak obviously has much more part of its total stock value as the value of its subsidiaries. So obviously at those levels, definitely it will become a contrarian buy.
Another follow-up question, Kotak Bank, Sandeep, is why has the stock underperformed otherwise? The name of CEO has come out over the weekend, but in last 2-3 years, Kotak otherwise has underperformed.
Because Kotak valuations, if you see, they used to be 6 times price to book when even HDFC Bank used to be at 4 times and ICICI Bank used to be much lower. And there was no reason per se, eventually, as the asset quality of all banks improved, as some of the other banks actually grew more aggressively than Kotak. And on the CASA front, in terms of cost of funds, some banks like HDFC, ICICI, even SBI is much better placed than Kotak. So the valuation premium was unjustified, and I think that's gone away. And that's the only reason I would think that it's underperformed, because the valuations had to correct.
So Sandeep, is the pecking order within the private banks pretty obvious? Because there's a stark divergence between what IndusInd and ICICI Bank are doing, and I'm only talking about the large private banks here, and Kotak and HDFC Bank on the other.
Yeah, HDFC Bank, if you see, when HDFC Bank results came out, since they were the first ones, people were very excited about those results. But once the other banks have reported, it's clear that HDFC Bank is facing issues of its own which are going to last because of the merger, and the other banks don't have those issues. So I would think that some of the other banks could keep on outperforming. IndusInd Bank numbers are very surprising, and to that extent, it's also outperformed. It's and given that the promoter stake hike, etc., news is also there, so it could sustain. ICICI Bank performance were impeccable. Their provision coverage ratio and the excess reserve provisions they hold, I think it makes it one of. I think it's the safest bank per se today, both on what the balance sheet shows. And Axis we have to see, because Axis is still much cheaper than all the other large private banks. So let's see how they report. But I think on valuations, that's still cheaper than most of the other large banks.
We've discussed IndusInd Bank, we've discussed HDFC Bank. Now let's discuss Paytm. And Sandeep, they are now in a sense clearly indicating that whatever we indicated at the beginning of the year in terms of path to profitability, in terms of where our balance sheet and where our business would move, it is pretty much walking on the right path now.
I think the good part of the investor pressures on most of these companies was that they stopped burning cash crazily. And once they stopped doing that, then I think the businesses which they are running, they have improved in terms of overall profitability. The only issue with a company like Paytm is that a large part of the earnings is coming out of the commissions which they are getting out of the loans they are sanctioning. And that business cannot get a very high P because it's just a transactional business where they just earn the commission. And to that extent, if you look at the core payments business, etc., there the competitive intensity is increasing. So incremental improvement in performances, whatever they're guiding for, if they keep on achieving that, then I think the stock will still remain strong.
Right. Just looking at a couple of...
A take from you, Sandeep, as to what the outlook is. Aisha just flagged off a credit access Grameen, and given the kind of positive brokerage notes coming in, not just from CLSA but from Nomura as well, saying that the strong performance continues, have you tracked this counter?
No, sorry.
Okay. What's the view then when it comes to Tech Mahindra? Owing to the kind of results that we've seen from the IT stable, Tech Mahindra up next, what are you penciling in?
Again, I think there'll be stress on growth now, how they hold, whether they are able to hold up the margins as some companies have done or not will be the key thing to see. But the outlook for the IT sector across the board actually is not improving. It's in fact deteriorating. So I think we need to see in that context what they talk of.
Anything in the mid-cap IT space, when I say mid-cap IT space, I'm qualifying it, not the IT services space, which could be interesting. You got RateGain, very unique business model. You got a MapMyIndia, very unique business model. Datamatics, very unique business model. There are a lot of SaaS and product IT companies like Zaggle, another product IT company. Anything interesting? Because up until now, we've only seen IT services companies in India, more like, body shop arbitrage models. Now you got product and SaaS companies which are coming out.
I agree, Nikunj. Unfortunately, I haven't studied most of them, but I agree with you that the stories and the outlook in some of them could be interesting because they are doing something which is very different from what IT companies earlier used to do.
I like to draw everyone's attention to Bajaj Auto, and we don't realize it, that you compare Bajaj Auto versus Hero MotoCorp. I mean, there is a stark difference here. Compare Bajaj Auto with TVS, again, there is a stark difference there. Bajaj Auto this year, can you believe it? Hello, 50% higher. Throw in TVS, last 1.5 years, it has hit out of the park. Hero Honda or Hero MotoCorp, I mean, there was Honda. If Honda was there, the problem would have not been there, trust me. Hero MotoCorp right now is languishing at the bottom of the pyramid. Sandeep, two stocks have done well from the auto space. One is Tata Motors and the second is Bajaj Auto this year. Stocks which have underperformed last couple of quarters, Maruti and to some extent Hero MotoCorp. Could it reverse going forward?
I would think that Maruti should do well, but whether Bajaj Auto and Tata Motors suddenly start doing not well is unlikely. I think Bajaj Auto is one of the most credible managements in the auto sector, and they were properly guiding when the slowdown was there, when they were suffering on the export front. Everything they guided the investors properly, and this time they have actually turned quite bullish both on domestic growth, exports, three-wheelers, as well as holding the margins, etc. So I don't think there's any case for being negative on Bajaj Auto per se.